Over 70% of the U.S. is covered in snow. Texas still seeing freezing temperatures Friday. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz continues to face criticism for his Mexico trip. The FBI and DOJ reportedly launching an investigation into New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and his team regarding his nursing home scandal. This comes as a Rasmussen survey found a solid majority of Americans want Congress to investigate if officials accurately reported virus cases in the U.S. And while Australia faces off against Facebook, Poland has taken a different approach to combat big tech censorship. Tune into Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Snow continues to blanket much of the U.S. According to the National Weather Service, 73% of the continental states all saw snow. The only states left out are Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. For those wondering about Hawaii, it does not fall under the continental states. Last time we checked, Hawaii does not have snow. Texas is still seeing freezing temperatures Friday. Texans are also facing another problem: property damage. A pipe burst in the ceiling above this bedroom. On Thursday night, the governor said power was restored to nearly 2 million homes across Texas, and any remaining power problems are due to power lines being down or having to reconnect manually. But he warns they are not out of the woods yet. Temperatures are still well below freezing across the state and water is scarce. According to poweroutage.us, nearly 200,000 are still without power. The Texas Commission of Environmental Policy still telling around 12 million Texans to boil water. Without electricity, some have resorted to using unconventional ways to boil snow. Now, carbon monoxide poisoning is a concern. The White House giving out advice to prevent carbon monoxide deaths. To avoid poisoning, experts say people should avoid running their cars inside garages, using grills indoors, or turning on ovens to heat homes. While things remain dire in Texas, officials say it could have been worse. How much worse? According to officials with the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, they say Texas was seconds and minutes away from uncontrolled blackouts across the state. The ERCOT is an independent power grid that covers most of the state. ERCOT President Bill Magnus credits grid operators' fast actions with stopping total blackouts. ERCOT announced Friday morning emergency conditions will end and normal operations will resume. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz is facing criticism for his Mexico trip. Cruz says he started having second thoughts as soon as he got on the plane. He decided to come back the next day.
You need to be here on the ground, and as much as you can do by phone and Zoom, it's not the same as being here. And so I returned this afternoon, and I'm here working to make sure to do everything we can to get the power turned on.
Cruz is a potential presidential candidate in 2024. With former President Donald Trump out of the limelight, Cruz is a high-profile target. Democrat celebrities and a social media swarm took the opportunity to unload on him. A group of reporters and chanting protesters formed lines outside his home. The Texas Democratic Party called on him to resign. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki quipped that she doesn't have any updates on the exact location of Senator Ted Cruz, nor does anyone at the White House. But others are saying Cruz shouldn't get more coverage than New York City Governor Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo has been accused of covering up nursing home deaths tied to the pandemic. According to a New York Post report, Secretary to the Governor, Melissa DeRosa, said the administration feared the Justice Department could use the numbers against them. She said they were worried then President Trump would use the information as a, quote, giant political football against them. Mayor Bill de Blasio urged for a full accounting of the situation on Friday. In an interview, he said, quote, "We need to know exactly what happened here. We need to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." The mayor's comments come as DeRosa sought to clarify her remarks, saying in a statement that the governor's office was comprehensive and transparent in its responses to the Justice Department. And now the FBI and DOJ reportedly are launching an investigation into Cuomo's team. An Albany newspaper broke the news, saying they're in the early stages and focusing on the governor's team. 9 Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee are calling on the panel's chairman to convene public hearings on New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's potentially criminal placing of CCP virus patients in nursing homes. And Democratic Assemblyman Ron Kim is also accusing Cuomo of obstructing justice. He says Cuomo has harassed him, told him to retract his statements and to lie for him. Governor Cuomo called Kim a liar, saying no one asked him to be part of a cover-up. He has, however, admitted to withholding nursing home data after state politicians asked for it. But Cuomo has not explained why they would be worried about the DOJ using this data against them. And now a new Rasmussen report found 65%, or a solid majority of Americans, want Congress to investigate if officials accurately reported virus cases in the U.S. The survey noted Cuomo's nursing home scandal and said 74% of Republicans supported an investigation into official COVID-19 reports. 60% of Democrats also support it, as do 59% of voters not affiliated with the two major parties. Those numbers changed when people were asked about their trust of information from public officials. Only 13% of Republican voters said yes, compared to 44% of Democrats. Rasmussen Reports says voters who approve of President Joe Biden are more likely to have a lot of trust in information from public officials about the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths, while those who disapprove of Biden are more likely to support a congressional investigation. While there are mixed responses to whether or not to trust the information coming from authorities, Australians woke up to no news feeds on their Facebook pages Thursday morning. This comes as Facebook and Australia's government are locked in battle. The country wants Facebook to pay Australian publishers to put news content on the platform. Google has agreed to the deal and has spent the week signing deals with major media outlets like News Corp, 7 West Media, and 9 Entertainment. But Facebook took a different approach. The tech giant banned all news content without warning. Even the treasurer was surprised. He said Mark Zuckerberg did not warn him about it when they spoke over the weekend about the looming media law. Facebook said in a statement, in response to Australia's proposed new media bargaining law, Facebook will restrict publishers and people in Australia from sharing or viewing Australian and international news content. But it wasn't only news that was affected. Australia's health department, the Bureau of Meteorology, the Western Australian opposition leader, charities, and even Facebook itself all got banned. And it goes beyond Australia. People outside of the country can't share news from Australian publishers. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison called Facebook's decision arrogant. He said, quote, Facebook's actions to unfriend Australia today, cutting off essential information services on health and emergency services, were as arrogant as they were disappointing. He added these actions will only confirm the concerns that an increasing number of countries are expressing about the behavior of big tech companies who think they are bigger than governments and that the rules should not apply to them. He said he won't back down and warned that he is in regular contact with world leaders who are all contending with how to better regulate big tech. And while Australia and Facebook duke it out, Poland has taken a different approach. The country is proposing a new law that would fine big tech millions of dollars for censoring free speech. The country's Deputy Justice Minister, Sebastian Kalita, told Fox News that social media companies have been targeting content that praises traditional values. He said, quote, we see that when big tech decides to remove content for political purposes, it's mostly content which praises traditional values or praises conservatism. He added, and it is deleted under their hate speech policy when it has no legal right to do so. If the new laws pass, any platform that restricts users for ideological reasons would face fines of $13.5 million, unless the content in question is also illegal under Polish law. The country would set up an arbitration committee to oversee disputes. Kalita said freedom of speech is not for anonymous moderators working for private companies to decide. He said that's what elected officials in the national body are for. This comes after social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram banned then-President Trump, accusing him of inciting the violence at the Capitol. Poland's prime minister announced the introduction of laws to protect freedom of speech on the internet last month. He said at the time, algorithms on the owners of corporate giants should not decide which views are right and which are not. adding there is no and can be no consent to censorship. Without mentioning Trump by name, he said freedom of speech is the salt of democracy. For that reason, we must defend it. He added the owners of social platforms cannot act above the law. He said the country would adopt appropriate national laws to regulate the operations of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other such platforms. The Polish Prime Minister said discussion consists in the exchange of views, not in silencing people. We do not have to agree with what our opponents write, but we cannot forbid anyone from expressing views that do not contravene the law. Poland is no stranger to censorship, as the country felt the effects firsthand for 45 years under communist rule. The Prime Minister noted when the country was told what they could or couldn't think, adding that this is why we are so concerned with any attempt to limit freedom. The Polish Deputy Minister of Justice, Sebastian Kalita, said the proposed legislation would prevent social media platforms from deleting posts or blocking user contents at their discretion if the content posted on them does not violate Polish law. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive and have a wonderful weekend.